Hey guys, in this vlog, I want to talk about two basic principles: minimalism in coding and life and business, and being open to new ideas and practices. And the third is the importance of concentrating on the basics. So how did this all come up? Well, I was going through my bookshelf this morning and in my closet, and I have tons and tons of books, and I've gotten rid of so many books over the last few years because when I moved, whatever it was, 5-6 years ago, I had boxes and boxes and boxes of books, a lot of them tech books, a lot of them programming books. And biggest part of the move was moving all these books. It was all these little things, these little boxes that took up all the, what was the hard work, took up all the time, not the big pieces of furniture, which was kind of strange, ironic. So what I started to do after the move, stupidly, was to start going through those books and just getting rid of them. And this may sound really strange, but in certain coding books have a certain sentimental value to me because they remind me of back in the my coding heyday, if you will, back in the 90s, early 90s, late 90s, and early 2000s, I guess, where I was really elbow deep into code, and that's where I really, cut my chops, if you will. I really developed my skill sets then. So these books have a certain sentimental value. I know it sounds weird, they're coding books, but to give you background, when at that time we didn't have the great material that we have now online, so books were essential to learning. There wasn't so many coding video tutorials back in the day. I had some of the first, amongst the first programming courses out there, period, back in late 90s, mid 90s rather. So I've been doing this a while. And anyway, so back in the day you would buy books. And I became a reviewer of tech books because I was spending about $3,000 to $4,000 a year on coding and programming books. And I said, wow, that's pretty good money to spend. So I started doing reviews for publishers because my websites, I'm getting 250, 300,000 or more unique visitors a month, millions of page views. So I would just email the publishers that said, hey, send me a review copy, and I'd read the book and do a review. And I was reading tons and tons back in the day, A, because I thought it was interesting, I had fun with it, and B, I was an insomniac. Now, I used to box, and in the process of boxing, I broke my nose, or my nose got broken 2 or 3 times, and I had a deviated septum, and I couldn't breathe, so I was effectively insomniac through my 20s and into my late 30s. And as a result of being an insomniac, I couldn't fall asleep at night, so I would read tons. I would read tons of books. I have literally read hundreds of those programming books, coding books that could be 3 inches thick. You don't see them too much anymore, but back in the 90s and early 2000s, that was the norm. Big, thick books by Sams and O'Reilly, of course, and all the major publishers. So I read hundreds of these books on all types of different languages. And coding for me was a business as much as it was a hobby for me, an intellectual pursuit. So all that said and done, today I went through, again, my collection of books, and I just had to let them go because I was looking at books that were published in 2004, 2005 on JavaScript, on Java, on, whatever, pick a language, Ruby books. So I said, you know what, I got to get rid of these because, first of all, I don't need them anymore. Second of all, they're very dated, so even though there's a lot of good knowledge in them, there's also some bad knowledge. And even if it's 20% bad knowledge, meaning they're in the books they're teaching or describing old libraries or old ways of doing things, that bad knowledge can really screw people up. So I used to give away books to people or bring them to libraries, but these books are so dated. I said, you know what? Even if they're 80% accurate or 85% accurate, I said, throw them out. So I threw them out. And I have to tell you, when you get rid of stuff, it's very freeing mentally. And it kind of reminds me when you hear about certain CEOs of big companies where they have a habit of wearing the same clothes every day, or have just two types of shirts or two types of pants or something, because they're reducing decisions. They're reducing things to think about, because when you're running a business, I can tell you, all you do is make decisions all the time. So the less things you have to decide about, you're making your life a little easier. The less things you have floating around in your house or in your office or in your code, whatever, it just sort of relaxes you. That's why when you go on vacation where you don't have much to do and you're just relaxing, sitting around, it's very relaxing. I think because you just have less options. So it's just easier. So what to take away from this vlog is, number one, you have to learn to let go of things that are really not that important. Strive for simplicity in everything, because when you surround yourself with an cluttered experience around you, less things, less problems to deal with, you'll find that things will be just easier. Your life will just be much more relaxed, and it's just much more pleasant that way. So I want to close with something, though, that I've spoken about in other videos. When it comes directly to programming and development, learning to code, I've always been a big advocate of the basics, learning the basics, because the basic concepts, the basic techniques don't change. So if you learn the basics of programming or the basics of object-oriented coding, this will hold true across all programming languages. The basics that are good today will be good in 10 years from now, I'm sure. And so that's where you concentrate your effort. I found in my coding career, whenever I had difficulties with, where I didn't understand a chunk of code or something, besides poorly written code, but what it always came down to, I realized when I was having difficulty understanding something, was that there's a gap in my knowledge with regards to some basic concept or some basic technique in a language. And that's it. So that's why in my courses, I always concentrate on the basic concepts, basic techniques. And once you have a super solid foundation, the rest is really easy, because a lot of the complex stuff, most of the complex stuff, are just basic things layered on top of each other like a hamburger. So that's the key. You got to learn those basics. You got to concentrate on those basics. If you do that, that's going to serve you long term. All right, that's it for this vlog.